Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you are well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more r/you mighty butthole. And if you love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too, and let's dive straight into today's first story. Now, today's first story comes from Lightning STR that does follow with an update and additional information as well. And just to say, the information was compiled by Father Son Holy Toast, who you should see many of their compiled stories, excellent stuff, titled "Am I the Arsehole for Raining on My Cousin's Parade regarding the name she picked out for her baby? My cousin Stephanie and I are really more friends than relatives. An important note is that she's not really online much, so can be out of the loop on certain times, on certain memes and jokes in internet culture, and to be honest doesn't really understand the concept of viral internet references or how they work. Stephanie is pregnant and just found out it's going to be a girl. About a week ago, she told a gathering of her best girlfriends that she's going to name her daughter Karen. The room instantly went cold, but after an awkward silence, everybody else politely said it was lovely. I couldn't bring myself to respond at all. Later in the evening, when Stephanie was out of the room, everyone was immediately like, "Oh my god, that poor kid. And why would she pick Karen of all names?" I was uncomfortable with this conversation, given that everyone had been so positive about the name to her face. I thought more about it over the next couple of days and just felt really weird about the whole thing. The name is really loaded, to the point it could be detrimental to the baby, and Stephanie had no idea of the connotations to make an informed decision. So a couple of days later, I tentatively brought it up. I told her I was so excited for the baby and just wanted her to have all the available information when picking a name. I then started to explain that Karen has some negative connotations and has become sort of an internet joke to describe a specific kind of entitled middle-aged woman. Stephanie instantly was furious and started talking over me, saying, "Why are you saying this? This is so mean." I was really surprised by her reaction. It felt very out of character. So I immediately stopped and said, "I'm really sorry, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. I just wanted to tell you something I thought you might not know." She replied, "That's the name I picked for my daughter, and you think I picked it as some kind of joke? I don't understand why you'd say something so hurtful." When she said that, I felt like it signaled that she didn't really understand what I was trying to tell her. So after agonizing for a second about whether to press the issue even though she was angry, I felt like in for a penny, in for a pound. And since she was already mad, I wanted her to at least understand what I was trying to explain to her. I googled "Karen know your meme" on my phone and we tried to show her the screen results while saying, "Look, I'm just saying there's more meaning to the name than you may realize." She stood up, pushed my phone away and shouted, "Wow!" She then stormed out of my home and drove away. My aunt and mum have been berating me all week because Stephanie told them I made fun of her baby name. Stephanie has not spoken to me or responded to my text since. I can take a hint and I'm not going to broach a topic again that caused so much distress, but I keep going back and forth on whether I was the arsehole here by bringing it up in the first place. And I'm going to come right out and tell you guys straight away that this post was flared as arsehole, but I gotta say, I feel it's not the arsehole to me, just for handing over that information about the current meme culture and stuff like that. I don't think you can be an arsehole just for giving over that information like that, just for informing someone, it could potentially be a bad idea. It's up to them to make the final decision in the end. That's why I just don't understand the arsehole flair on this one. But Eat and Dread says, "You're the arsehole, you really think it's going to matter when this kid's older? It's a meme. Oh, and for anyone pregnant or planning to have kids, this is why you don't reveal the name until they are born. Someone always got something stupid to say, no matter what." And I will give it the benefit of the doubt in that, this post was 3 years ago, but I think the Karen thing came around in 2018, wasn't it? So, I don't know. Frosky Deck replies to that saying, "Yeah, precisely, internet memes come and go in a flash. I think OP is massively exaggerating the likelihood that the associations will stick around." Elise says, "You're the arsehole, I am aware of the Karen meme, but come on, it's a totally normal name. I can't believe so many of you would take a meme so seriously." Fuzzy Goat says, "Not the arsehole, I would want to know. It's a hard situation you are in because if she found out later, she'd be angry that you didn't tell her. People get very sensitive over things like this because, of course, it's a big deal. I think telling her was right. Rotty5115 says, "You and all the others are arseholes. Grow up. You think Karen has even remembered in 10 years. Guess you are some sort of Karen." Mrs. Valentine says, "Karen is a completely normal name. You're acting as if your cousin has committed a faux pas on par with naming her baby Adolf, when in reality, the name Karen really carries very little connotation at all, and certainly nothing that will be remembered by the time Stephanie's kid is a middle-aged woman. Nobody with half a brain is marching around with the assumption that all Karens are rude and entitled. The same way as nobody with half a brain is marching around thinking all boys called Harry are wizards, or anyone with a surname Bond is a womanizer. So yes, you're the arsehole because your comments were completely uncalled for, considering you're supposed to be a friend. Perhaps you should take a leaf out of your cousin's book and spend less time online in order to get some perspective." And one more from Lost in the Woods, who says, "You are the arsehole. You aren't raising the kid. Just because the name is tied to memes doesn't make it an awful name, especially in the mother's eyes." So with it being a "you're the arsehole," OP edited the post and said, "Thanks everyone. I have been properly schooled and I accept my judgment that I was the arsehole here. Stephanie and I have a history of being extremely open and honest with each other. I was the maid of honor in her wedding, which we planned on being the case from a young age, and we always joked as teenagers that part of my duties would include taking her out to the marriage if the groom she picked sucked. And so maybe I was too flippant with approaching this topic due to our history, and was unempathetic in underestimating how much she already invested in the name she chose for a future daughter. I admit I'm a bit frustrated that Stephanie still doesn't understand what I was trying to tell her. She still thinks I was making some kind of weird, cruel joke, accusing her of picking the name as a joke. But I have messaged her a sincere apology that she accepted, and I will never speak of this again to Stephanie or baby Karen. I'll also stand up for Stephanie if her other friends shit-talk the name around me again. If they are not willing to voice their thoughts to Stephanie directly, they need to not say the kind of things they were saying behind her back." Edit 2. One more thing. I was definitely not trying to tell Stephanie to not name her daughter Karen. I just wanted her to make the decision either way, knowing the connotations, since I'd want someone to do the same for me if I'd picked a baby name with cultural baggage I wasn't aware of. I realise now I handled it poorly and was hurtful to Stephanie in the process, but I wanted to be clear that I wasn't actively trying to talk her out of the name. I just didn't want her to be blindsided if it came up later. And a slight bit of additional information before we move on from OP's comments that said Stephanie and her husband have a deal on baby names where she picks girls' baby names, he picks boys' baby names, and they each have unlimited veto power for the other person's choices. He's on board with Karen as far as I know. We're all the same age, late 20s, but neither of them spends time online or is even particularly tech savvy. So this is the update from 1 year later. My post last summer wasn't the most exciting or dramatic on Am I the Arsehole, but I wanted to provide an update if anyone is interested. Baby Karen was born healthy and happy back in October. She's an absolute sweetheart of a baby, and I am totally in love with her. Between March and May, I didn't get to see her at all in person, but I was doing regular FaceTime and house party calls with Stephanie and Karen. And over the last few weeks, I've been going over to Stephanie's house to sit in her backyard and chat with Stephanie and coo at Karen from a lengthy distance. I have 2 reasons for updating. First, I've realised since Karen's birth that her name has taken on a new meaning to me. When I'm with her, Karen just means her, and I don't think about the other connotations. In other words, you guys were right. That said though, my second reason for updating is that Stephanie got back into her years unused Facebook at the beginning of the pandemic to keep in touch with people. She's been on it pretty regularly lately for the first time in years. Historically, she's not been into social media. Most people in our area and social circle have been posting really heavily about BLM and the protests happening right now, as well as racial justice issues more generally. As a result, Stephanie has now come into contact with a deluge of Karen memes for the first time, and found them confusing and horrifying, especially the use of Karen as shorthand for a racist. I've basically just declined to talk about it with Stephanie because it went so poorly last time. But both my mother and her mother have hounded me about it because it's upsetting to Stephanie, and said things like, "Is this what you were talking about before? Why didn't you say so? Why didn't you explain it better? You should have told Stephanie." And Jesus wept, "You really can't win." Thanks again for all your feedback on my last post. It was very helpful in giving me some zen about the situation. Edit, wow, I've been super overwhelmed by the flood of very kind heartfelt PMs and just one or two not so kind ones, as well as the comments on my other post. Thank you everyone. It continually amazes me how nice and empathetic people frequent a sub devoted to arseholes. Additional comments from OP for context. In response to someone criticizing Stephanie. To be fair, Stephanie has been cool about it. First she saw a bunch of posts about the Central Park Karen, when that white lady was harassing the black birdwatcher in the park, and came to me asking me to explain why everyone was calling the woman Karen when her name was Amy. Since she's gotten back on Facebook, she often asks me to be like her internet culture interpreter. I immediately told her, sorry, I'm not having a conversation with you about this because we had a major conflict over it last year and I'm not getting into it with you. I think that was the first time she started to understand what I'd been telling her last year, and in fairness to her, she didn't bring it up with me again. As for my mum and aunt, they're kind of generally ridiculous. They tend to be extremely reactive to whatever is going on precisely at that moment, and if someone in the family is upset, they get over involved trying to fix it. Stephanie has been venting to her mum about this, not about me, just how upsetting the memes are, and she and my mum have been doing their normal thing of blowing it out of proportion, and now making it my fault somehow. I love my mum and aunt dearly, but they are not to be reasoned with. And then OP replies to another criticism of Stephanie and says, honestly, with my mum and aunt, it's easier to just wait for them to move on to the next shiny thing. I don't blame Stephanie at all. She's just upset and confused, but hasn't made it my problem at all. My aunt and mum just have a flair for the dramatic. Then OP replies in a response to someone saying they still thought OP was the arsehole because they brought up concerns with the name for selfish reasons. Then goes on to say, I probably wasn't clear about this in my original post, and I think it's probably because that's the part I cut down when I went way over the word limit for that first post. But when I described feeling weird and uncomfortable over the couple of days I took to ruminate after Stephanie's announcement, the weirdness and discomfort was mostly a response to what happened with our friend group rather than just my own feelings about the name. I felt super uncomfortable being in the room while our friend shit-talked Stephanie's name choice after praising it to her face. I didn't have the presence in mind in the moment to call them out before the moment was past, and I sat with that guilt for a couple of days. I didn't want to tell Stephanie what they said because it would have been tattly of me, and I also didn't want to cause conflict with a friend group or upset Stephanie. So raising the topic on my own seemed like a good compromise at the time. I did wrestle internally with how to handle it, and clearly I missed the mark. Now OP replies in response to the comment, do you understand that there is a massive difference in being upset with your friends for their response and approaching Stephanie because you say you want her to be fully informed of her name choice? These are two different things that you are conflating. No, to be clear, I didn't raise the conversation with Stephanie in lieu of scolding our friends. I brought it up because I thought they owed it to her to raise those points to her face if they were going to say them at all. Ultimately, I thought Stephanie was owed the knowledge of the connotations, whatever she chose to do with that knowledge. Also, I don't know how to explain the context of our relationship, but Stephanie and I have a lifetime of shared radical honesty with one another. From the inconsequential, telling each other when outfits are unflattering, to the difficult, when she gave me a come to Jesus talk years ago about how someone I considered a close friend was super shitty to me and I should end the friendship. Based on our extreme closeness and shared history, this conversation felt like the right move at the time, even though it ultimately backfired. Now, what do you guys make of this one? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and we're going to move on to another updated story. And this next story is from Am I the Arsehole Throwaway Sister Act? And it's titled, Am I the Arsehole for telling my sister to stop using nonsense baby talk? Really need Reddit for this one, as I genuinely don't know if I am the arsehole. Throwaway, as my sister has Reddit, all fake names. My 34 female sister, 27 female, Alana, has always been somewhat infantile. But in the last year she stepped up her game in the category of nonsense baby talk. She was seeing a guy last year who I think liked it, which might be why. But it's literally every second sentence and it's driving me nuts. Some examples, she's arrived at my house and asked if she could put some, I knew it was going to try and make me do it, juice in the fridge? Turned out she wanted to put juice in my fridge. On seeing my 6-month-old crying, she loudly says, Oh no, don't cree. What the fuck? And she's asked if we have any ice in the frizz. Ice in the freezer. My word. You get the idea. It's endless and very annoying. My older sister, 35 female, Esty, apologies about the pronunciation, and I have chosen to combat this by pretending we don't know what she means until she says it correctly. My mum does nothing about it as Alana is the youngest and always babied a bit. Mum has even translated the baby talk for me and Esty when we pretended we don't understand. Anyway, yesterday Alana was at my house for my birthday and the baby talk was dialed up to 100. We had a giant cookie for her cake, and later in the evening, Alana handed my husband a plate and requested a slice of a slice of the cake of cooks. No, a slice of cookie cake. This was too much for me, and I told her to stop with the made-up words. She replied, "But it's cute." I informed her it was not cute and asked her to cut it out. She refused and told me I can do whatever I want and nobody can tell me what to do, or something along those lines, to which my mum agreed. I then said that she had to make sure not to use the nonsense words in front of my 6-month-old, as I wanted her learning the right words, which was really just an excuse to stop her from doing it. Alana pointed out that Esty uses made-up words with her 2-year-old. Esty says tumma instead of tummy, and that's the only one she could think of. I said what Esty does with her daughter is irrelevant because I'm the one asking Alana to stop. That bit might not be relevant, but I'm adding for full transparency. When my husband reappeared with a cake, I refused to let Alana have it until she asked for it properly. She gave me a death glare but did ask properly, albeit sulkily. My am I the arsehole is twofold here. Was I the arsehole to withhold the cake until she asked for it like a grown-up? And was I the arsehole for telling her to stop talking nonsense in the first place? She is, after all, a fully grown adult who can do what she likes, but I honestly can't tell you how irritating it is to hear nonsense talk all the time from a 27-year-old woman. And she had dialed it up to 11 for some reason. My mum agreed with Alana, obviously. SD wasn't there but agreed with me when she was told what happened, as did my husband. I'd love to put my foot down and tell her to cut it out every time, but I need the judgment on Reddit for this, as I don't know if I'm blinded to my unreasonableness by how annoying it is. Now usually I come into this one and say, live your own life. If that's how you want to live, talking cute, then that's on you, but it is affecting other people, and I got to say that would annoy the hell out of me as well. And I get people do the occasional baby talk, and to their partners as well sometimes, absolutely fine, but it sounds like it's happening all the time. The whole cookie thing, I could barely read it. My jaw was clenching as I was reading it. I was like, what the hell? It's just all too much for me. But we're going to read some comments. We've got our update on this one and then a full update afterwards. So we're going to start off with No Policy 4095, who says, "Not the arsehole, it's not cute, it's weird and as annoying as all get out. You're not wrong to point out it's ridiculous and ask her to stop. I would also be ignoring it and not responding when she uses baby talk until she uses actual words. But also hold hope that if she's around your children, as your children get older, they're going to say things. Kids don't hold back at all." MM172 says, "Not the arsehole, just tell her I have no idea what you are talking about every single time. Because if what you are typing is an accurate representation of what she's saying, I have no idea how she expects anyone else to pass any of that." Sam the Superman says, "I thought she was primarily doing this baby talk to a child. She needs to cut this shit out. It's incredibly cringe." And now we're going to go to that first update to see what it says, because I can't wait. Edit. Thanks for all the comments. I'm trying to read through them all on and off while looking after my daughter, and some of them are really making me laugh. To answer a few questions, yes, I've addressed this before, as has SD. This is the first time I flat out refused to follow up on what she said. She's pulled the "but you do it with your daughter" card on SD before too, so clearly she thinks that's a good argument. The only people present were me, my mum, Alana and my husband, and it was just low key things, so no big crowd. SD and her husband joined later via Zoom. We played Joke Boat on Jackbox and I came 5th. Alana is generally very sweet and fun, but definitely immature and can be super annoying. This gets on my last nerve very quickly, and I can be hard on her, hence my "am I the arsehole?" Usually my husband is good at pointing out if I'm being harsh, but he was totally on my side here. Yes, I use the Home sister's name on purpose, and yes, I'm smug I get to be Danielle. Anyway, my mum just came over and I spoke to her. She agreed very quickly that it is annoying as fuck, but said that Alana is working on standing up for herself and my mum wanted to support that. I was like, sure, but pick your battles. My mum agreed and said she will talk to her about it when it's just them, as she thought that agreeing with me in the moment would have made Alana defensive and she wouldn't have listened, which is probably true. I mentioned that some commenters had said about it being my house and me being able to ask her to stop. She agreed with this and reiterated she would talk to Alana. That's all I have for now. I'm going to talk to SD and I think we're going to go for the talk to her seriously / treat her like an adult approach and try to be a bit kinder about it. Thanks again for the comments. SD and I are feeling very vindicated. And again, we have one more update which we'll cover straight away. Hi everyone, I'm back with an update to my previous post. As I said before, SD and I feel very vindicated by the judgment and the comments in general, as we're always told by our mum not to be hard on poor Alana. It's got to the point where we don't rip into her like we do each other, which is a shame as we're English and our primary love language is insults and sarcasm. Anyway, I digress. I got my chance to confront Alana on Saturday evening when Alana and my mum came over for another round of Jackbox and Alana asked me if I ever liked her new jump. I replied, "Your what?" And she levelled with me with a slightly smug, unblinking stare. My mum jumps in and tells me she means her jumper. And Alana interrupts her saying, "She knows what I mean. I can say jump if I like." Clearly, she had decided to double down. But I had my Reddit voices in my ear and I was prepared. I asked her to stop talking in nonsense words, and she told me that it's a thing that all millennials do, and I need to get over it, and said that I do it too, and gave Prosec as an example to Prosecco. I disagreed and told her that I'd been Googling it. Translation, I've asked a bunch of Redditors, and that it made me wonder if she was doing it as a reaction to no longer being the youngest in the family. She was very affronted by this, telling me she had been doing it way longer than the arrival of the kids. I said she had been doing it much more recently. My mum agreed with me. Alana looked livid at this and kept spluttering that it wasn't the case. I then said that in my Google Reddit research, I'd read that it could be a comfort for anxiety and asked her if this is what it was. She seemed very annoyed about my trying to diagnose her or make it into an issue. In my opinion, she was trying to be cute and funny and I was ruining it with my concern for her well-being. She told me I was very weird for thinking it's a big deal and for Googling it, and I said I was doing this because she's far too old to be talking like a Yoda baby. I then said that if it wasn't a reaction to anxiety, could she please stop? Because it annoys me a lot and I don't want to be annoyed when I hang out with her. Full props to Reddit for my phrasing here. She stared at me in silence for a good 20 seconds. I could see her brain whirring as she tried to calculate a reason to say no. But in the end, my mum quietly interjected with, "That's a reasonable request, isn't it?" And Alana gave a hefty defeated sigh and said, "Fine." I said thank you, and we swiftly moved on. I'm hopeful that's the end of it. I'm so glad I turned to Reddit for this one, as all the advice worked perfectly, and I'm going to try and keep it in mind with my interactions with Alana going forward. Wow. And I personally think you dealt with it in the best way in this situation, but what would you do if one of your relatives was talking in this way? Would you find it cute maybe, or would you confront this in some way? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Now, a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart for getting involved in today's stories. Your love, your support, your time, everything you do is absolutely amazing. Never forget the difference you make to a channel like mine. It really does make a difference. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next one. Take care, guys. Much love.